The vast expanse of space held many wonders, but none as terrifying as the creature known as the Shadow Claw. This beast, with its jet-black fur and eyes that glowed like dying stars, was the stuff of nightmares for every species in the known galaxy. Rumors about the Shadow Claw spread faster than light across the cosmic communications network. Some said it could tear through starship hulls with its razor-sharp claws. Others whispered that its roar could shatter planets. While many of these tales were exaggerations, the truth remained. The Shadow Claw was the apex predator of the galaxy, and no one had ever survived a close encounter with one. On the outer rim of the Milky Way, a massive space station named Celestial Haven orbited a gas giant. This bustling hub of interstellar commerce and cultural exchange was home to thousands of beings from hundreds of different species. Despite its name, Celestial Haven was about to become anything but heavenly. It was a regular day on the station when the first reports came in. A cargo ship, scheduled to dock with supplies, had gone silent. When a search party found the vessel, they discovered a chilling scene. The entire crew was gone, and deep claw marks scored the walls and floors. Station Director Zara, a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, called an emergency meeting. As she stood before the gathered representatives of various species, her normally steady voice trembled slightly. "We have reason to believe," she announced, her words echoing in the tense silence, "that a Shadow Claw has found its way onto our station." The room erupted into chaos. Panicked voices shouted over each other, some calling for immediate evacuation, others demanding more information. Zara raised all 4 of her arms, calling for quiet. "We understand your fear," she said, her voice firm. "But we must approach this situation calmly and logically. Our security teams are already working to locate and contain the threat." As the meeting continued, fear spread through the station like a virus. Parents kept their children close, shops closed early, and the usually bustling corridors became eerily quiet. Everyone was on edge, jumping at shadows and strange noises. In the lower levels of the station, where the maintenance crews worked tirelessly to keep the massive structure functioning, strange sounds echoed through the dimly lit corridors. Workers reported hearing low growls and the sound of claws scraping against metal. Josie, a human technician, was checking the power couplings when she heard something that made her blood run cold. It was a sound unlike anything she'd ever heard before. A low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the station. With shaking hands, Josie reached for her communicator. "Control," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I think I've found something. Section 42B, near the main power distribution hub." "Copy that, Josie," came the tense reply. "Security is on the way. Do not, I repeat, do not engage. Get out of there now." But as Josie turned to leave, she found her path blocked. Standing before her, its massive form nearly filling the corridor, was the Shadow Claw. It was even more terrifying than the stories had claimed. Its fur seemed to absorb the light around it, creating a void in the shape of a beast. Its eyes, glowing with an otherworldly intelligence, fixed on Josie. Time seemed to stand still as human and predator faced each other. Josie's heart pounded in her chest, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She knew she should run, but her legs refused to move. The Shadow Claw took a step forward, its claws clicking against the metal floor. Josie closed her eyes, certain that her life was about to end. But instead of feeling the creature's claws tearing into her, she felt nothing. Slowly, hesitantly, Josie opened her eyes. The Shadow Claw was still there, watching her intently. But it made no move to attack. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, as if curious about this small, fragile creature that stood before it without running away. In that moment, something unexpected happened. Josie, driven by a mixture of fear, adrenaline, and an inexplicable feeling she couldn't quite name, did something that would change the course of galactic history. She spoke to the Shadow Claw. "Hello," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I'm Josie. Are you lost?" The Shadow Claw's eyes widened slightly, and for a brief moment, Josie could have sworn she saw a flicker of surprise in those glowing orbs. Little did Josie know, but this simple act of communication would be the first step in an incredible journey, one that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about the Shadow Claw and about humanity itself. Josie Chen was not a hero. She was just a regular human who happened to work as a technician on Celestial Haven. At 28 years old, with short black hair and a face full of freckles, she blended into the background of the bustling space station. But beneath her ordinary appearance lay an extraordinary spirit. Growing up on Earth, Josie had always been fascinated by animals. While other kids dreamed of being astronauts or engineers, she wanted to be a veterinarian. Life had other plans, though, and she ended up fixing machines instead of animals. Still, her love for all living creatures never faded. On Celestial Haven, Josie was known for her kindness. She often spent her free time in the station's small zoo, helping care for the alien creatures there. Her coworkers joked that she could charm any beast in the galaxy. The day the Shadow Claw arrived started like any other. Josie woke up, had her breakfast, synthetic eggs and real coffee, a luxury in space, and headed to work. As she walked through the station's corridors, she noticed something was off. People were whispering, looking scared. But Josie, focused on her job, didn't think much of it. It wasn't until her lunch break that she heard the news. A Shadow Claw, the most feared predator in the galaxy, was loose on the station. Fears spread through Celestial Haven like wildfire. "We should evacuate," one of Josie's coworkers, a tall, tentacled alien named Zix, said. "No one can stop a Shadow Claw." But Josie wasn't so sure. "Maybe it's just scared," she said quietly. "Imagine being alone in a strange place with everyone afraid of you." Zix looked at her like she had grown a second head. "Josie, it's not a lost puppy. It's a killer." Josie shrugged. She knew Zix was probably right, but she couldn't help feeling sorry for the creature. As the day went on, the station became eerily quiet. Most people stayed in their homes, too scared to go out. But Josie had a job to do. The station's systems needed constant maintenance, Shadow Claw or no Shadow Claw. That's how she found herself in Section 42B, checking power couplings, when she heard that bone-chilling growl. And then, face to face with the most dangerous creature in the galaxy, Josie did the unthinkable. She said hello. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Shadow Claw stared at Josie, and Josie stared back. Its eyes were unlike anything she had ever seen, deep and dark, with flecks of light that looked like stars. Despite her fear, Josie found them beautiful. Slowly, carefully, Josie took a small step forward. The Shadow Claw tensed but didn't attack. Encouraged, Josie spoke again. "You must be hungry," she said softly. "I have some food in my bag. Would you like some?" Moving very slowly, Josie reached into her work bag and pulled out her lunchbox. Inside was a sandwich and some fruit. She placed it on the ground and stepped back. The Shadow Claw looked at the food, then back at Josie. It seemed confused, as if it had never encountered kindness before. After a moment, it moved forward and sniffed the food. Then, to Josie's amazement, it began to eat. As the creature ate, Josie noticed something she hadn't seen before. There was a thin metal collar around its neck, partially hidden by its thick fur. The collar looked tight and uncomfortable. "Oh, you poor thing," Josie murmured. "No wonder you're upset. That must hurt." The Shadow Claw looked up at her words. For a brief moment, Josie thought she saw a flicker of understanding in its eyes. Just then, Josie's communicator crackled to life. "Josie, are you okay? Security is on their way. Get out of there now." The sudden noise startled the Shadow Claw. It growled, backing away from Josie. But instead of attacking, it turned and ran, disappearing into the shadowy corridors of the station. Josie stood there, her heart pounding. She knew she should be terrified, but all she felt was a strange mix of excitement and concern. The Shadow Claw wasn't the mindless killer everyone thought it was. It was scared and hurting, and Josie was determined to help it. As the sound of approaching security echoed through the corridor, Josie made a decision. She wouldn't tell them about her encounter. Not yet. First, she needed to understand more about this mysterious creature. Little did Josie know, but her simple act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that would change the galaxy forever. The unlikely friendship between a human and the universe's most feared predator was about to begin. The days following Josie's encounter with the Shadow Claw were tense on Celestial Haven. Security patrols roamed the corridors, and most residents stayed in their quarters, too scared to venture out. But Josie couldn't stop thinking about the creature with the starry eyes and the painful-looking collar. During her shifts, Josie found herself wandering to the lower levels of the station, hoping for another glimpse of the Shadow Claw. She started carrying extra food in her bag, just in case. On the third day, her persistence paid off. As she was checking a faulty air recycler, she heard a now familiar growl. Turning slowly, she saw the Shadow Claw watching her from the shadows. "Hello again," Josie said softly, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I brought you something to eat." She carefully placed some synthesized meat on the floor and stepped back. The Shadow Claw approached cautiously, its eyes never leaving Josie. As it ate, Josie noticed that it seemed thinner than before, its black fur less shiny. "You're having a tough time, aren't you?" Josie murmured. "I wish I could help you more." To her surprise, the Shadow Claw lifted its head and made a soft chirping sound, almost like a response. Josie's eyes widened. Could it understand her? Encouraged, Josie kept talking. She told the Shadow Claw about her day, about the station, about Earth. The creature listened, tilting its head curiously at certain words. As Josie spoke, she slowly inched closer. The Shadow Claw tensed, but didn't run away. Finally, Josie was close enough to see the collar clearly. It was made of a strange, shimmering metal she didn't recognize, with blinking lights along its length. "That looks really uncomfortable," Josie said, pointing at the collar. "Is that why you're here? Did you escape from somewhere?" The Shadow Claw made another chirping sound, louder this time. It pawed at the collar, as if trying to show Josie something. Josie's mind raced. The collar didn't look like any animal control device she'd ever seen. It was too complex, too high-tech. Could it be a translator? A control device? Before she could think more about it, her communicator buzzed. "Attention all personnel," came the voice of Station Director Zora. "We have located the Shadow Claw in Section 39C. All non-security staff must evacuate immediately." Josie's heart sank. Section 39C was just 2 corridors away. Security would be here any minute. "You need to go," she told the Shadow Claw urgently. "They're coming for you. Hide." To her amazement, the Shadow Claw seemed to understand. It gave her one last look, then turned and disappeared into the shadows. Moments later, a security team rounded the corner, led by a tough-looking reptilian officer named Kraz. "Chen," Kraz barked. "What are you doing here? This area is off-limits." "Sorry, sir," Josie stammered. "I was just finishing some repairs. I'm leaving now." Kraz narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "Did you see anything unusual?" Josie's mind flashed to the Shadow Claw, to its intelligent eyes and the mysterious collar. She made a split-second decision. "No, sir," she lied. "Nothing at all." As Josie walked away, her mind was in turmoil. She had just lied to security to protect a creature that the entire station feared. Was she crazy? Or was there more to the Shadow Claw than anyone realized? That night, Josie couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, thinking about the Shadow Claw. There was something about it, something in its eyes that seemed almost human. It wasn't just a mindless beast. It was intelligent, perhaps even sentient. And that collar. Josie was sure it was the key to understanding the Shadow Claw. But how could she help without getting caught? As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Josie made a decision. She would find a way to remove that collar. She would uncover the truth about the Shadow Claw, no matter the risk. Little did Josie know, but her decision would not only change her life, but the lives of every being in the galaxy. The unlikely friendship between a human technician and the universe's most feared predator was about to face its first real test. As Josie finally drifted off to sleep, somewhere in the dark depths of Celestial Haven, a pair of starry eyes blinked open. The Shadow Claw hadn't left. It was waiting, watching, sensing that this strange human was different from the others. For the first time in its long, lonely existence, the Shadow Claw felt something new. The next few days were a whirlwind for Josie. By day, she went about her normal duties, fixing machines and avoiding suspicious looks from the security teams. But at night, she secretly searched the station's database for information about the Shadow Claw and its mysterious collar. Her research didn't turn up much. The Shadow Claw was still largely a mystery to the scientific community. But Josie did find something interesting. A few old reports of Shadow Claws being used as weapons by a secretive alien race called the Void Walkers. The reports were unclear and mostly dismissed as rumors, but they made Josie wonder. On the 5th night after her second encounter with the Shadow Claw, Josie decided it was time to act. She packed her bag with tools, food, and a small medical kit. Then, taking a deep breath, she snuck out of her quarters and headed for the lower levels of the station. The corridors were eerily quiet. Most of the station's inhabitants were still too scared to venture out at night. Josie's footsteps echoed in the silence as she made her way deeper into the station's underbelly. After what felt like hours of searching, Josie heard a familiar growl. Her heart leaped as she turned and saw the Shadow Claw emerging from the shadows. "Hey there," Josie said softly, kneeling down. "I've been looking for you." The Shadow Claw approached her cautiously. It looked worse than before, thinner, its movements slower. The collar seemed to be glowing brighter, pulsing with an ominous light. Josie held out some food, which the Shadow Claw ate gratefully. As it ate, Josie slowly reached out towards the collar. The Shadow Claw flinched at first, but then, to Josie's amazement, it stood still, allowing her to examine the device. Up close, the collar was even stranger than Josie had thought. It was covered in tiny symbols that seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. There was a small panel on one side, blinking with red and green lights. "Okay," Josie muttered, more to herself than to the Shadow Claw. "Let's see if we can get this thing off you." She reached into her bag for her tools, but as soon as her hand touched the collar, a jolt of energy threw her backward. Josie hit the ground hard, her ears ringing. The Shadow Claw let out a pained roar, the collar glowing brighter than ever. For a moment, Josie thought she saw something flicker in the air around the creature, like a hologram, but clearer, more real. Before Josie could process what she'd seen, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The security system had detected the energy surge. "Oh no," Josie gasped, scrambling to her feet. "We need to go. Now." But the Shadow Claw was in no condition to run. It swayed on its feet, clearly disoriented from whatever the collar had done. Josie made a split-second decision. She couldn't leave the creature here to be captured or worse. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and gently placed her hand on the Shadow Claw's side. "It's okay," she said soothingly. "I'm going to help you, but you need to trust me." To her surprise, the Shadow Claw didn't pull away. Instead, it leaned into her touch, as if drawing strength from her. Slowly, carefully, Josie began guiding the Shadow Claw through the corridors. She could hear the sound of approaching security teams, their heavy boots echoing off the metal walls. As they turned a corner, Josie saw a small maintenance hatch. It would be a tight squeeze, but it might be their only chance. "In here," she whispered, opening the hatch. Quickly. The Shadow Claw hesitated for a moment. Then, to Josie's relief, squeezed through the opening. Josie followed, pulling the hatch shut just as the first security team rounded the corner. In the dark, cramped space of the maintenance tunnel, Josie found herself pressed close to the Shadow Claw. She could feel its rapid heartbeat, smell its musky scent. Despite the danger they were in, she felt strangely calm. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, gently stroking the creature's fur. "I promise, I'll find a way to help you." As they huddled together in the darkness, waiting for the danger to pass, Josie realized something. In trying to understand and help the Shadow Claw, she had formed a bond with it. A bond that defied everything she'd been taught about the feared predator. Little did Josie know, but this moment of trust and connection would be the turning point in their unlikely friendship. The human and the Shadow Claw, united against the fears and prejudices of the galaxy, were about to embark on an adventure that would change everything. Josie and the Shadow Claw remained hidden in the maintenance tunnel for what felt like hours. The sound of boots and urgent voices eventually faded, but Josie knew they couldn't stay there forever. They needed a plan. "Okay, buddy," she whispered to the Shadow Claw. "We need to find somewhere safe for you to rest, and I need to figure out how to get that collar off without hurting you." The Shadow Claw made a soft chirping sound, as if in agreement. Josie smiled despite their dire situation. It was becoming clearer to her that this creature was far more intelligent than anyone had ever realized. Carefully, Josie opened the maintenance hatch and peeked out. The corridor was empty. "Coast is clear," she said. "Let's go." They moved quietly through the lower levels of the station, Josie leading the way. She was heading for an old storage area she knew was rarely used. It would be a good place to hide, at least for a while. As they turned a corner, Josie suddenly heard voices. She quickly pulled the Shadow Claw into a dark alcove, holding her breath as two security officers walked by. "I don't get it," one of them was saying. "How can a creature that big just disappear?" "Maybe it's not just a dumb animal," the other replied. "The higher-ups seem pretty desperate to catch it. Makes you wonder what they're not telling us." Josie's mind raced. The officer's words confirmed her suspicions. There was more to this situation than a simple escaped predator. Once the coast was clear again, Josie and the Shadow Claw continued on. They finally reached the storage area, and Josie breathed a sigh of relief as she closed the door behind them. "We should be safe here for now," she told the Shadow Claw. "Let me take a look at that collar again." As Josie examined the device more closely, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. There was a tiny screen on the collar, displaying strange symbols that changed every few seconds. "It's some kind of code," Josie muttered. "But what does it mean?" Just then, her communicator buzzed. Josie's heart sank as she saw it was a station-wide alert from Director Zora. "Attention all personnel," Zora's voice crackled through the device. "We have reason to believe that the Shadow Claw is being aided by someone on this station. Anyone found assisting this dangerous creature will face severe consequences. I urge you all to stay vigilant and report any suspicious activity immediately." Josie turned off the communicator, her hands shaking. They knew. Somehow, they knew she was helping the Shadow Claw. But why were they so determined to capture it? The Shadow Claw sensed Josie's distress. It moved closer to her, gently nudging her hand with its head. Josie couldn't help but smile. "Thanks," she said softly. "I guess we're in this together now, huh?" As if in response, the Shadow Claw's eyes suddenly glowed brighter. The collar beeped, and the symbols on the tiny screen changed rapidly. Josie watched in amazement as a holographic image appeared above the collar. It showed a star map with one particular system highlighted. "Is this where you're from?" Josie asked, her voice filled with wonder. The Shadow Claw made an affirmative chirp. Then, to Josie's shock, it began to change. The air around it shimmered, and for a brief moment, Josie saw not a fearsome predator, but a tall, elegant alien being. The image flickered and faded quickly, the collar glowing red-hot. The Shadow Claw whimpered in pain, returning to its beast-like form. Josie's mind reeled. The Shadow Claw wasn't just an animal. It was a shapeshifter. The collar wasn't just restraining it. It was forcing it to maintain this predator form. "Oh my God," Josie breathed. "You're not what everyone thinks you are at all, are you?" Before the Shadow Claw could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. A voice boomed over the intercom. "Alert. Unauthorized access detected in Storage Area 17. All security personnel report immediately." Josie's heart raced. They had been found. "We have to get out of here," she said urgently to the Shadow Claw. "But where can we go?" As security forces converged on their location, Josie realized they were out of options. They couldn't keep running. It was time to face the truth and make the rest of the station face it too. With a deep breath, Josie made a decision that would change everything. "Come on," she said to the Shadow Claw. "It's time to show everyone who you really are." As they prepared to step out and face whatever came next, Josie knew one thing for certain. Her life, and the lives of everyone on Celestial Haven, would never be the same again. Josie's heart pounded as she and the Shadow Claw stepped out of the storage area. The corridor was filled with security officers, their weapons drawn and pointed directly at them. At the front of the group stood Director Zara, her forearms crossed and her expression grim. "Josie Chen," Zara said, her voice cold. "You are under arrest for aiding a dangerous creature and compromising the safety of this station." Josie took a deep breath. It was now or never. "Wait," she shouted. "You don't understand. The Shadow Claw isn't what you think it is." Zora's eyes narrowed. "Explain yourself, quickly." Josie turned to the Shadow Claw. "Show them," she said softly. "It's okay. I'm right here with you." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the air around the Shadow Claw began to shimmer. The security team gasped and took a step back. Even Zora's eyes widened in surprise. The fearsome predator's form flickered and changed. In its place stood a tall, elegant being with silvery skin and eyes that looked like swirling galaxies. The collar around its neck glowed red-hot, clearly causing the alien pain as it fought to maintain its true form. "This is who the Shadow Claw really is," Josie explained quickly. "It's not a monster. It's a shapeshifter being forced to stay in that predator form by this collar." The alien looked at Josie gratefully, then turned to address the stunned crowd. When it spoke, its voice was like music, translator collar struggling to keep up. "I am Zixix of the Stellar Nomads," it said. "I was captured by the Void Walkers and forced to become their weapon. I escaped, but I cannot remove this collar that binds me." Director Zara stepped forward, her face a mix of awe and confusion. "But why didn't you try to communicate with us before?" Zixix lowered its head. "The collar, it does more than just control my form. It suppresses my ability to communicate clearly. Only this human, Josie, saw past my monstrous appearance and tried to understand me." Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tension. Well, isn't this an interesting development?" Everyone turned to see a tall, dark-clad figure step out of the shadows. Josie recognized him as Ambassador Vex, representative of a mysterious race that had recently joined the station. "Ambassador," Zara said, confused. "What are you doing here?" Vex smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm here to reclaim what's mine," he said, his eyes fixed on Zixix. "Did you really think you could escape the Void Walkers so easily?" Gasps echoed through the corridor. The Void Walkers were real, and they had been on the station all along. Vex raised his hand, revealing a small device. The collar around Zixix's neck began to glow brighter, and the alien cried out in pain. Without thinking, Josie leaped forward. "Stop it," she yelled, reaching for the device in Vex's hand. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. As Josie's hand touched the device, a surge of energy pulsed through her. She felt a strange connection, not just to the device, but to Zixix as well. Suddenly, knowledge flooded Josie's mind. She saw flashes of Zixix's memories, of the stellar nomad's advanced technology, of the Void Walker's cruel experiments, and she understood. With a clarity she couldn't explain, Josie's fingers flew over the device. The collar around Zixix's neck beeped, then fell to the ground, deactivated. Vex snarled and lunged for Josie, but Zixix was faster. Free from the collar's control, the alien shifted forms rapidly, becoming a swirling mass of energy that surrounded Vex, containing him. "Security!" Zora shouted, snapping out of her shock. "Detain the ambassador." As the security team moved to arrest Vex, Josie turned to Zixix, who had returned to their humanoid form. "Are you okay?" she asked. Zixix nodded, their eyes shining with gratitude. "Thanks to you, Josie Chen. You have freed me and exposed a great threat to your people. The Void Walkers have been infiltrating stations and planets across the galaxy, capturing and controlling beings like me for their own purposes." Director Zara stepped forward. "We owe you an apology, Zixix, and you too, Josie. Your bravery and compassion have saved us all from a danger we didn't even know existed." As the reality of what had just happened sank in, Josie realized that this was just the beginning. The threat of the Void Walkers was real, and now the entire station, perhaps the entire galaxy, would have to come together to face it. Josie looked at Zixix and smiled. Their unlikely friendship had changed everything, proving that understanding and compassion could overcome even the greatest of fears. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. In the days following the dramatic confrontation with Ambassador Vex, Celestial Haven was abuzz with activity. The station's inhabitants, once paralyzed by fear of the Shadow Claw, now found themselves grappling with a new reality. The existence of the Void Walkers and the truth about Zixix and the stellar nomads. Josie, once a simple technician, had become an overnight hero. As she walked through the station's corridors, she was met with smiles, nods of respect, and occasional awestruck whispers. It was a strange feeling for someone who had always preferred to blend into the background. Director Zora had called for an emergency meeting of the station's council, and to Josie's surprise, both she and Zixix had been invited to attend. As they entered the council chamber, Josie felt a mix of nervousness and determination. "Josie Chen," Zora began, her voice formal but warm, "your actions have not only saved our station, but have also unveiled a threat that affects the entire galaxy. We owe you a great debt." Josie blushed, not used to such praise. "I just did what I thought was right," she said simply. Zixix, standing tall in their elegant humanoid form, spoke next. "It is not just Josie who deserves praise, but all of you who were willing to look past your fears and listen to the truth. This is a quality that sets humans apart. Your capacity for understanding and compassion, even in the face of the unknown." The council members nodded, many looking thoughtful. One of them, a wise old Quarian with flowing tentacles, leaned forward. "Tell us, Zixix of the Stellar Nomads, what can we do to help your people and to combat the threat of the Void Walkers?" Zixix's eyes glimmered like distant stars. "The Void Walkers' strength lies in secrecy and fear. By working together, by sharing knowledge and understanding, we can shine a light on their darkness." As the meeting continued, plans were made. Celestial Haven would become a hub for gathering intelligence on the Void Walkers. They would reach out to other stations and planets, warning them of the threat and encouraging cooperation between species. Josie listened, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. The galaxy was so much bigger and more complex than she had ever imagined. But as she looked around the room, at beings from dozens of different species all working together, she felt hope. After the meeting, Josie and Zixix stood by one of the station's large viewing windows, looking out at the stars. "I never thought I'd be involved in something like this," Josie said, shaking her head in wonder. Zixix turned to her, their starry eyes warm. "You have a rare gift, Josie Chen. You see beyond appearances, beyond fear. You seek to understand. This is why you were able to help me when no one else could." Josie smiled. I guess I'd always believed that if you take the time to understand someone, or something, you'll usually find there's more to them than meets the eye. This belief, Zixix said, is what makes humans unique in the galaxy. Your species is young, but you have an incredible capacity for growth, for pushing boundaries, for seeing possibilities where others see only threats. As they spoke, a small crowd had gathered nearby. Beings of all shapes and sizes were watching Josie and Zixix with curiosity and growing admiration. The sight of a human and a stellar nomad talking as friends was something entirely new. Josie noticed the crowd and felt a sudden urge to bridge the gap. "Would you like to meet Zixix?" she asked them, smiling encouragingly. There was a moment of hesitation. Then a young Sarvian child stepped forward, its gelatinous body quivering with a mix of fear and excitement. "Is it true you can change shape?" the child asked Zixix. Zixix knelt down, their form shimmering and changing into a small, harmless-looking creature that made the Sarvian child giggle with delight. Soon, others were coming forward, asking questions, sharing stories. Josie watched with joy as barriers of fear and mistrust began to crumble. In that moment, Josie realized that this was just the beginning. The threat of the Void Walkers was real and dangerous, but so was the power of understanding and unity. Humans, with their unique perspective and adaptability, had an important role to play in this new galactic community. As the impromptu gathering grew, beings from all over the station joining in, Josie felt a sense of purpose she'd never known before. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and dangers, but it was also filled with possibilities, with chances for discovery and growth. Josie Chen, once an ordinary technician, now stood at the forefront of a new era of galactic cooperation, and she was ready for whatever adventures lay ahead.